Friends, this is a cataract with small pupil and there is a fibrous band along the pupillary border. Let us observe this surgery. This is the main incision with a 2.8 mm keratome on the posterior aspect of the limbus. And now this is a paracentesis, about 2.5 clock hours away from the main incision on the left side. Then an air bubble is injected and trypan blue 0.06% dye is applied over the anterior capsule underneath this air bubble. And now the dye is washed out. In this case I didn't use adrenaline because it is of no use. There is a fibrous band and it has kept the pupil to this size. So, before applying any pupil expansion device, either we have to stress the pupil to about 4 mm or we can cut the fibrous band with one scissor and then apply a pupil expansion device. I am cutting the fibrous band with one scissor. Small cuts, 3 cuts were given, and now the pupil has enlarged to some extent. One more side port is made on the right side, and now this is B-hex pupil expansion device being applied with the help of a B-hex forceps. 23 gauge B-hex forceps. Now see what happens. As I try to introduce the device, the trailing end is stuck in the main wound. If it gets stuck like this, we should not try to tuck the leading flange at on-go. So I came out, introduced the trailing end into the anterior chamber, injected some visco, and here it is. The flange at 5:30 o'clock is being tucked. Now the flange at 1 o'clock is being tucked, and now the flange at 10 o'clock is tucked, going through the left side port. Some dye was behind the iris, it has come out, and now visco is injected, and now is the time to do rhexis. Incise the rhexis with a needle and then use Utrata forceps to do a rhexis of about 5.25 mm size. The pupil has dilated up to 5.5 mm and the size of this rhexis is about 5.25 mm. And now hydrodissection is done with BSS and 27 gauge cannula, and then visco is injected into the anterior chamber. Visco means 2% hydroxypropyl methyl cellulose, and then the tip of the phaco handpiece is introduced into the anterior chamber. Some superficial cortex is removed, then the handpiece is turned, bevel is made up, and direct chop is carried out, the nucleus is divided into several fragments. Phaco power used in this case is 60%, flow rate is 40 ml per minute, and vacuum is 400 millimeter of mercury. And now in this case I noted vitreous upthrust. So I am doing single-handed phaco. I am using the chopper when I need to rotate the nuclear mass or chop the nuclear mass, and then I remove the chopper and emulsify the nuclear fragments single-handedly. Thus I get a more stable chamber. So whenever there is vitreous upthrust, we can employ this technique, single-handed phaco. Or whenever we need more followability, we can apply this technique. Yes, the nucleus has been managed. Some cortex is there. In this case I have used a Simcoe for removing the cortex of the inferior part, and by this time my assistant is getting ready with the bimanual irrigation aspiration, and I'm going to use the bimanual for removal of this subincisional cortex. Here it is. The irrigation aspiration probes are being used. Irrigation is from the right side port and the aspiration is being carried out by the probe introducing it through the left side port. Yes, this is a very sticky cortex, firmly stuck to the posterior capsule, and it has come out. And this is a little bit of hydro polish, means the irrigating jet of fluid is used to polish the posterior capsule. And now this is visco to fill up the anterior chamber. And now the main wound is enlarged little bit, say up to 3 millimeter, because I want to place the lens directly in the bag, and the trailing haptic should go beyond the flange which is just in front of the main wound. The trailing haptic should not press over this flange. Yes, the lens has gone into the capsular bag. The intraocular lens is dialed. The haptics are about 90 degrees away from the main wound, and then remove the B-hex with the help of the same forceps. Hold any flange above the iris and bring it in the anterior chamber and remove it like this. And now the viscoelastic substance is thoroughly cleaned. I have used Simcoe, which has been edited out, And now I'm using bimanual irrigation aspiration for removal of visco. And now the sideboards are closed by corneal stromal hydration. After closing these sideboards, a final lavage of the anterior chamber is done by a 23G Simcoe We form the anterior chamber very nicely. See how it is formed. The Simcoe is placed at the main wound like this. A forward push is given and it is brought out. And you can see that the main wound is nicely sealed. There is no leakage from the main wound. The main wound doesn't require hydration most of the time. Thank you very much for your attention. Hope this video will help you in developing your surgical skills. Be a great surgeon and serve your patients with love, respect, empathy, and great surgical competence.